Welcome, everyone. This is Arthur Pearlie Martin, and today we're going to do a Bible study, a summary on the book of Job. So, welcome to the book of Job, you guys. It's one of the Bible's most profound accounts of faith, suffering, and God's sovereignty. It's set during the patriotic period. Job tells the story of a righteous man whose faith was tested through unimaginable loss, you guys. As Job wrestled with difficult questions alongside his friends, God ultimately reveals his immanent wisdom, power, and authority. Okay, so you guys, let me finish here, and we're going to dive into the book of Job. We're going to read chapter 1 and 2. The central message of Job is that God remains sovereign in every circumstances, and that suffering is not always the result of personal sin, you guys. Even when life's trials are difficult to understand, believers are called to trust God's character, remain faithful, and place their hope in Him. Throughout this study, you guys, we're going to discover timeless truths about perseverance, humility, God's justice, and His restoring grace. Above all, the book of Job it points us to our living Redeemer and reminds us that God's purpose is always greater than our circumstance. As you listen, may your faith be strengthened, your trust in God deepen, and your confidence grow in the one who's always in control. Through chapter 1 and 2, the central message of Job is that God remains sovereign in every circumstances, and that suffering is not always the result of personal sin, you guys. Even when life's trials are difficult to understand, believers are called to trust God's character, remain faithful, and place their hope in Him. Throughout this study, you guys, we're going to discover timeless truths about perseverance, humility, God's justice, and His restoring grace. Above all, the book of Job it points us to our living Redeemer and reminds us that God's purpose is always greater than our circumstance. As you listen, may your faith be strengthened, your trust in God deepen, and your confidence grow in the one who's always in control. Through chapter 1 and 2, the main characters of the book of Job, we know, of course, is God, the sovereign creator, who permitted Job's testing and ultimately revealed his wisdom and power to Job. Then, of course, we have Satan, because he's the accuser who challenges Job's faithfulness before God. Right? This is the beginning of the story. And then we have Job's wife, who encourages Job to curse God after his suffering began. Be careful of the people that you got around you when you're going through. Eliphaz, Eliphaz, that's Job's first friend who believes suffering is always the result of something bad happening. You know that friend that you have around, oh, they must have did something. That's why they're suffering. No, suffering isn't always about bad things. Jesus learned obedience by the things he suffered. So be careful, be aware of that. Understand the trials and the tests. Ask God, why? Where's this coming from? Why is this happening? Okay, then we got Bildad. He argues that God always punishes the wicked and rewards the righteous. Do you have any friends like this around you? These are Job's friends, right? Then we have Zophar. He harshly accuses Job of hidden sin. Saying, Job, surely you had to do something for this to all be happening to you. You know, the devil comes to steal the word too. And tribulations happen to work patience. Patience produce character. Sometimes God delivers from the trial. Sometimes God allows us to go through the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had to go through the fire. It's called suffering for righteousness' sake. You can suffer for doing the right thing. Jesus suffered for righteousness' sake. These things didn't happen to him because he was sinning or did something wrong. And also know this, our faith must be tried. So think it not strange and fiery trials come upon you, as if something strange is happening to you. But make sure that you don't have any doors. Make sure that we're suffering for righteousness' sake and not for being a busybody or meddler in someone else's business. Okay, and this last friend we have is Elihu. He's a younger man who speaks of God's justice and sovereignty before God answers Job. So these are the characters of the book of Job. That we don't really know who the writer is. It was written approximately between 2000 and between 2000 or in 1800 BC, this before Christ. Why do we say that? Because there's no evidence or mentioning of Israel or the Mosaic law in the book of Job. Job serves as a priest for his own family. A lot of us is called to be priests of our own household to stand in the gap to intercede on their behalf. Job's wealth was measured in livestock, and Job lived many years similar to the patriarchs. Where did all this happen? Job lived in the land of Uz. It's believed to have been located east or southeast of Israel, possibly in the region of Edom or North Arabia. I'm sorry about that. So, throughout the thread of the story, we want to say, well, why was the book of Job written? It was written that it teaches us, the book of Job teaches us that God remains sovereign over every circumstance. Listen, our circumstances, our changing circumstances, does not change who God is. It shows that suffering is not always punishment for sin, like we were just speaking. It reveals that Satan's power is limited by God's authority. If the devil could really do what he wanted to do, he wouldn't have to go around like a roaring lion seeking who can devour. The devil cannot just devour any and everybody. The book of Job encouraged believers to trust God even when his purposes are hidden, even when you don't understand what you're going through. Even he said, I need you to still trust God in the process. Trouble don't feel good, but trouble's working some things together for our good. Tribulations work patience, and patience produce character. It demonstrates the true faith, that true faith comes through both blessings and hardships. Our faith must be tried. It's easy to trust God when things are going good, but can we trust him in the fire? The book of Job reveals God's justice, wisdom, and compassion. So you guys, the purpose is to encourage believers to remain faithful during trials by trusting God's wisdom, power, and goodness, even when they do not understand his plan. So the verse we haven't gotten there yet, so we're not going to go there. But the two key chapters we're going to focus on today is Job 1 and 2. In Job 1, Satan challenges Job's authority. This is when he goes before God, asking him, told God he's looking for someone. He's going to and fro throughout the earth looking for someone to devour. And God says, have you considered my servant Job? Chapter 2 is when Job loses his health, but he still remains faithful to God in spite of the circumstance. And, the just is called to live by faith. He who promised is faithful. So even when we don't understand it all, we still are called to stand through it all, to endure it. That's one of the fruits of the Spirit. So we're getting ready to start on the book of Job. You guys, welcome. Please leave a comment. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and please leave a comment. Job chapter 1. I'm reading the Christian Standard Version, you guys. There was a man in the country of Uz named Job. He was a man of complete integrity who feared God and turned away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. His estate includes 7,000 sheep and goats, 3,000 camels, 500 yokes of ox, 500 female donkeys, and a very large number of servants. Job was the greatest man among all the people of the East. His sons used to take turns having banquets at their homes. They would send an invitation to their 3 sisters to eat and drink with him. Whenever a round of banqueting was over, Job would send for his children and purify them, rising early in the morning to offer burnt offerings for all of them. For Job thought, perhaps my children have sinned, having cursed God in their hearts. This was Job's regular practice. Likewise, our regular practice should be to constantly stand in the gap and intercede on behalf of our children. This is like being the priest of our family, making intercessions on behalf of our children. Okay, now we're on Job chapter 1, verse 6. One day the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord asked Satan, where have you come from? This is Satan challenging God's integrity, right? So Satan asks, where have you come from? from roaming through the earth? Satan answered him, and walking around on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? No one else on earth is like him, a man of perfect integrity, who fears God and turn away from evil. See, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, you guys. Satan answered the Lord, does Job fear God for nothing? Haven't you placed a hedge around him, his household, and everything he owns? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and strike everything he owns, and he will surely curse you to your face. Very well, the Lord told Satan. Everything he owns is in your power. However, do not lay a hand on Job himself. So Satan left the presence of the Lord. Now, know this, remember this and understand this. Job didn't have the Bible. So Job did not know that this was Satan doing this to him. Job thought God was doing this to him. Always remember the context and the setting. This was BC, before Christ. Job didn't have the Bible. He wasn't able to read the story like we are. So keep that in mind as we continue to read on. Notice the Lord said, Satan, you can't touch his life. So, the devil can't just kill us when he wants to. Let's just make sure that we're walking in agreement and in fellowship with the Lord, so the devil's not able to lead us astray. Verse 19, Job chapter 113. One day when Job's son and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and reported, while the oxen were plowing and the donkey grazing nearby, the Sabine swooped down and took them away. They struck down the servants with the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. He was still speaking when another messenger came and reported, God fire fell from heaven, and it burned the sheep and the servants and devoured them, and I alone has escaped to tell you. Isn't this like what people be saying, like, oh, when it rains and pours? Listen, we have to watch our words during our time of testing, because that's what the devil wants. He wants us to get in doubt and unbelief. We have to remain steadfast and immovable, always abounding in the works of the Lord. Even now our faith is being tested through this season, this time that we're going through here on the earth even now, right? Are we going to trust God? Is our faith going to be in God's economy or man's economy? Is our faith going to rest in what the presidents say, what they say? Is our faith going to rest in what God say? Right? We must remain faithful. The just shall live by faith. Faith is a lifestyle. It's not just a one-time event. Well, I'm going to trust God for healing. No, faith is to be applied to every area of our lives, every day, all day, right? So let's continue. Job 1:17. The messenger was still speaking when yet another came and reported, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands, made a raid on the camels, and took them away. They struck down the servants with the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. He was still speaking when another messenger came and reported, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. Suddenly a powerful wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on the young people so that they died, and I alone escaped to tell you. Job has a lot going on in his family. But his faith is not resting in what's going on around him. His faith is resting on the God that he serves. His faith is in God, right? Then Job stood up, tore his robe, and shaved his head. He fell to the ground and worshipped. He fell to all this going on in his life. And I want you to see that Job did not start cursing God. He did not start blaming God. He got on his face and he worshiped God. That's relationship, right? Saying, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will leave this life. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord, right? But Job didn't realize that it wasn't the Lord doing these things. It was the devil doing it. But God did allow it, but it was the devil doing these things, right? He didn't have the story. He didn't know it was the devil challenging his faith. Verse 22. Throughout all this, Job did not sin or blame God for anything. That's the key. That's what the devil wants. he wants us to blame God. Before I had a relationship with Christ, I thought God did it all, just like Job, the good, bad, and ugly. But here we see Job did not blame God because he knew God was good, right? He didn't blame him. Verse chapter 2. One day the sons of God came again to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them to present himself before the Lord. So Satan and the sons of God, here they are together. The Lord asked Satan, where have you come from? From roaming through the earth? Satan answered him, and walking around on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? No one else on earth is like him, a man of perfect integrity who fear God and turn away from evil. You know what? Sometimes you could be suffering. Could you be suffering because God is bragging on you? The devil sees you. God is getting ready to promote you. So the devil is coming to try to test your faith, right? Trying to make you curse God, trying to ruin your reputation so people can say, see, I told you God wasn't real. Then the Lord said to Satan, okay, verse 4, God turned away from evil. No one else on earth is like him, a perfect man of integrity who fears God and turns away from evil. He still retains his integrity, even though you incited me against him to destroy him for no good reason. Skin for skin, Satan answered the Lord. A man will give up everything he owns in exchange for his life. The devil said a man will give up everything he owns in exchange for his own life. But the word of the Lord says if we hold on to our life, we'll lose it. But if we lose our life for Christ's sake, we will gain it. Here he's talking about his physical life, though. But stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. Now we see that his health is getting ready to be challenged. His physical health is getting ready to be challenged. Verse 6. Very well, the Lord told Satan, he is in your power. Only spare his life. So Satan left the Lord's presence and infected Job with terrible wounds from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery to scrape himself while he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, here come the doubt and unbelief, right? We got to be careful of who we have in our circle when we're suffering and we're going through things. Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die. Ooh-wee. Make sure you got some faith friends around you when you're going through, because you need people to speak life and not death. She wanted Job to curse God. Job said this is his response to his wife. He said, you speak as a foolish woman speak. He told her, should we accept only good from God and not adversity? Throughout all of this, Job did not sin in what he said. Listen, we have got to watch our words when we're going through. We have to watch our words anyway, because life and death is in the power of our tongue. But Job understood the power of the words. He said, throughout all of this, Job did not sin in what he said. You know, we can sin in what we say, right? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Blessings and curses flow from my mouth. So Job 11, verse 2:11. Now when Job's three friends, Eliphaz and Temanite, I can't pronounce these names, so you guys go back and read it. Bildad and Shuhite and Zophar and Namathite heard about all this adversity that had happened to him. Now his friends heard about all this stuff happening to Job. Here come these friends. Do you have faith-filled friends? I like to say Job friends criticized him, but the crippled man friends carried him. Listen to this. Make sure you got faith-filled friends when you're going through. So here come his friends. They met together to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. They're supposed to be comforting him. When they looked from a distance, they could barely recognize him. They wept aloud, and each man tore his robe and threw dust into the air and on his head. Then they sat on the ground with him 7 days and nights. But no one spoke a word to him because they saw that his suffering was very intense. That's good. You know, they sat with him. I'm going to have to go on and read verse 3. After this, Job began to speak and curse the day he was born. He said, "May the day I was born perish, and the night that said, a boy is conceived. If only that day had turned to darkness. May God above not care about it, or light shine on it. May darkness and gloom reclaim it, and a cloud settle over it. May what darkens the day terrify it. If only darkness had taken that night away. May it not appear amongst the days of the year, or be listed in the calendars. Yes, may that night be barren. May no joyful shout be heard in it. Let those who curse days condemn it. Those who are really ready to rouse Leviathan. May its morning star grow dark. May it wait for daylight, but have none. May it not see the breaking of dawn. For that night did not shut the doors of my mother's womb and hide sorrow from my eyes. Why was I not stillborn? He was just regretting the day that he was born. Why didn't I die as I came from the womb? Why did the knees receive me? And why were there breasts for me to nurse? He's saying it would have been just better if I wasn't born. Now I would certainly be lying down in peace. I would be asleep. Then I would be at rest with the king and counselors of the earth, who rebuild ruined cities for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or why was I not hidden like a miscarriage child, like infant who never see daylight? There the wicked cease to make trouble, and there the weary find rest. The captives are completely at rest. They do not hear a taskmaster's voice. Both small and great are there, and the slaves are set free from his master. Why is light given to one burdened with grief, and life to those whose existence is bitter, who wait for death, but it does not come, and search for it more than for hidden treasure, who are filled with much joy, and are glad when they reach the grave? Why is life given to a man whose path is hidden, whom God has pledged in? Outside when food is put before me, and my groans pour out like water. For the thing I feared has overtaken me. Job said, the thing I feared has overtaken me. The thing I feared has overtaken me. Don't let fear activate your faith, right? And what I dreaded has happened to me. I cannot relax or be calm. I have no rest, for turmoil has come. That's Job 3. We're going to end this session here. Okay, so let's talk about chapter 3 a little bit more before we head out here. What is some of the things that we picked up from Job chapter 3? He was really regretting the day that he was born, right? You guys remember to subscribe, like, share, and please go back and read the book of Job. I'm reading the Christian Standard Version. So I'm going to end it here, and you guys follow me for the rest of the chapters. I'm going to read the entire book of Job. Okay, let's see. Let's get a little more out of chapter 3. In chapter 3, we see Job's friends approaching. So Job, he's laminating about his sufferings. He's talking about his sufferings. Episode speaks. We see his three friends speaking. But Job, he still defends his integrity. All righty. We're going to continue to read further Job chapter 4. I pray you guys follow us throughout this